Hey everyone, welcome to the Brightside here on Facebook. It's our Facebook Live. We have quite the guests in the studio here today.
Yeah, we are going to be talking to Rishi Naleendra, who's the chef owner of Kotua, one of Singapore's very, very few Sri Lankan restaurants. In fact, the only premier one that I know of. And Cloud Street as well, which has a Michelin Star. His previous restaurant, Cheek Bistro, also had a Michelin Star. Real honor to have a decorated and amazing chef like Rishi here with us.
And to share more about Sri Lankan heritage, the country itself. You have a lot to say on that. So, hey, we're going to jump back on air. Join us right now. We couldn't come out from a more suitable song. Hungry Eyes, Eric Carmen. He's talking about Hungry Eyes, just thinking about the amazing cuisine that we have from our guests at his establishment. Let's give a big welcome, Shehzad.
A big welcome to Rishi Naleendra, the chef owner of Kotua, which is one of Singapore's very few Sri Lankan restaurants, and Cloud Street, which has a Michelin Star as well. His previous restaurant, Cheek Bistro, also gained a Michelin Star. Rishi, so good to have you with us.
Very, very lovely to be here this morning.
Yeah, you can't help yourself, right? Just getting stars everywhere you go. Yeah, and you know what's really cute, everyone, is that when Chef Rishi came into the studio, Shehzad was like, I went to your establishment, you brought your wife there, right?
Yes.
For dinner. And Chef Rishi remembers you.
This was from January 2020.
Wow.
And at Cloud Street, you get very personalized service effectively, right? And yeah, chef came over, we had a chat, and he remembers the chat, which is amazing.
Sounds like there was a lot of cricket going on, actually.
Yeah, well,
cricket has connected you.
As you know, cricket is played a big part of my life, and as a Sri Lankan who also lived in Australia, cricket has definitely played a big part of anyone who grows up in Sri Lanka. It's a part of the fabric, isn't it?
I mean, it's one thing changed that country, and like growing up there, like when we won the 1996 World Cup, like we were going through such a hard time in that country. We had the civil war going, and it was in shambles. But for a day, the country stopped, and we all thought anything is possible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
I think that is one incident that changed our attitude towards how we approach things.
Yeah.
So you're of Sri Lankan heritage. You lived in Australia since you were 18. Your wife is a European. What made you choose Singapore as your base?
Yes.
I moved to Australia when I was 18. I moved to Melbourne, and then from there I moved to Sydney for work. I always felt Melbourne was home since the day I moved there. It's such a different place, and I moved to Sydney for work. I know, like, it's such a frowned upon thing to say. Like, you can't say Melbourne's better than Sydney, especially on air. But
I Sydney.
Yeah, you see our phone lines are heating up. Must be all these angry,
I really enjoy Sydney lifestyle, and I'm like, I really want to go back to Melbourne.
Okay.
And the idea was to go work in a winery. And then Manuela's like, I don't want to go back to Melbourne. I lived there all my life. I've never seen anything else. Can we go somewhere else for 2 years? It was going to be London or Singapore. I don't know why Singapore came to our heads, but there were some amazing restaurants even 10 years ago when we made the decision. Andre was there, Iggy's was there, Tippling Club.
Yes.
Ryan had started, and then Burn-Ins was just open. I'm like, it seems like for an Asian country, I had a lot going on. And also, I mean, it's Asia. I grew up in Sri Lanka. It's a 3.5-hour flight. I'm like, I could go to Sri Lanka for a weekend and just have lunch with family and come back.
Because your family is still in Sri Lanka. Your mom is still in Sri Lanka.
My mom lives at my younger brother.
You just told me you got off the plane, 3-hour flight back from Sri Lanka. Was it yesterday, today, recently?
No, it was recently.
Yeah. So you travel quite a bit back and forth.
Yes, there was 1 year. I had a bit of work that year, and I had gone to Sri Lanka 16 times.
It's a great base. I mean, you can technically just go there for lunch and come back as well, right?
But Rishi, while you said you didn't quite enjoy Sydney as much as say Melbourne, you worked at some of the top restaurants there, didn't you? You've got some really good experience there.
I did. Like, working at Ted's changed my career, and to be honest, it might not be the place where I learned the most, but moving here, I realized Ted was a lot bigger here. He had opened Wakugin and everyone knew him. So anyway, I applied for a job or anything, like having that on my CV was a massive
Open
thing.
doors for you.
Pretty much.
It's so important to be connected, right?
100%, and it's one job I learned discipline, and that's what I actually learned most out of TED. And people often think like freedom to do anything in life comes with having that freedom in your mind and body, but that discipline gives you that. If you don't
that is true.
put yourself in those positions and control it, like that's what I learned.
Amazing.
I really like that, from discipline, then you start to have the freedom. Very
100%.
interesting concept. We're going to talk more about this as well as your Sri Lankan heritage. You have so much to share about your country, and we're going to ask him for what's your type question for today? What's your most memorable ice cream experience? Come and hear about it as we jump onto Facebook Live, facebook.com/1FM913. Okay, we are back, everybody. How are we doing? The conversation continues with Chef Rishi here on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining in. And hey, drop us your questions. We've had some questions already, your comments as well. You can tell him how great his hair is. His hair is very nice.
It is.
Let's take a moment and admire his hair. Yes, perfectly coiffed. That's why we were like, no headphones for you. And it might just win you this $100 dining voucher from Shirashi Sushi So.
Yeah, just chime on in. Send us any question you may have for Chef Rishi. In fact, Chef Rishi, we're curious. You do a lot of wonderful Sri Lankan food. But when it comes to ice cream, what's one interesting way you like to change things up?
I mean, my career in Singapore sort of changed because of an ice cream.
Really? Oh.
What? And when I first moved here, my second job, and we had staff meal, and we had made one of the boys had made laksa. And when you order laksa leaf here, in Australia, it comes in like a little bunch.
Yes.
100 grams.
Yes.
Singapore, it comes in a big bag. It's like 2 kilos of laksa leaf.
And from our backyard.
And I'm like, let's turn that into an ice cream.
Laksa leaf.
So we made an ice cream with laksa leaf. And then we ended up serving that with a coconut semi-frito and a green chili sauce.
Wow.
And with peanuts and pomelo.
Whoa.
And that's sort of like, it was done at that restaurant called Maka, my first restaurant, and then when I opened Cheek by Jowl. And that was on, and it's one thing sort of got a lot of attention.
What did you call it? Yeah.
Laksa leaf ice cream.
Okay, and it's still around?
Can we still get it?
No, every now and then we still make it. And once a customer said, put a bit of chicken in there, I'll still eat it.
Oh, really? That is so interesting.
So, I love it. This question we literally came up with this morning about ice cream experience.
Yeah.
And that ice cream experience has been one of your defining moments.
I think so.
Oh, that's cool.
Wonderful.
That's really cool.
Really, really wonderful.
The stars are aligned. I mean, the ice cream cones are aligned.
But, I mean, I used to love sugar, and ice cream was
Well, you're Sri Lankan, of course you do.
I know, yeah, exactly. We eat sugar with anything and everything. But, like, ice cream, I was obsessed with ice cream as a kid.
Right.
But when I eat it, I'll always, like, beat it in the cup.
Oh.
And turn it into a milkshake. And slowly eat it.
That's your habit, is it?
Yeah, that was my habit.
Some
Up to
people like
today.
it gooey.
I do not eat that much ice cream or any sugar anymore.
No, good point. Good point.
Like, I save all my sugar goodness for a good bowl of ice cream. That's what I do, because
Yeah,
I
that's
really
fair.
love ice cream. That's, I think, my
can't
ultimate
stop you.
dessert.
So these guys
If
have
I
been.
start.
Our producer Joel here actually came up with an ice cream hack: vanilla ice cream with sesame oil.
And a bit of salt, sprinkling of salt flakes.
Sounds delicious.
I tried it. It's good, dude.
I think a chef
It's
would
good.
appreciate that.
It's good.
Yeah.
100%.
Because we were like rolling our eyes, like, wait, what? And she's
No.
tried it with soy sauce as well. Because there was a
Yes.
TikTok trend where you have vanilla
and it
ice cream,
tastes like
soy
salted
sauce.
caramel, like the most luxe salted caramel.
I can
ice cream.
imagine.
Yeah, I'm still like.
It's
Do I
one
wanna
way
give
to
that a
look
go?
at things, because even when we put the green chili sauce into that dessert,
Oh.
you just take, because we know ingredients for our mindset is very different when we look at something. We say, okay, that's savory. But if you take sesame, there's so many sweets we make with sesame.
I did. That's what I didn't realize. Never
how
thought
many
about
sweets
it.
like make with salt? Soy is salt.
That's
and you
true.
make the soy caramel out of soy.
Joel is onto something. He might
think
need,
so.
He might need him to be a sous chef.
Hey.
Get him into a dessert for the week or something. Yeah.
No, get him to be the official taster.
How do you think vanilla ice cream will go with umami butter?
He's not as excited
Again,
as the sesame one. Though.
No, I think
could
he's
actually
working
say
it out in his head. How can I make it work?
It's salt.
Yeah.
Anything sweet
Salt,
works really well. Even at Cloud Street, when we come up with the dessert, it's one thing we do. We use salt. You gotta season it. Sugar is so one-dimensional when it comes to a point, and salt is what carries things.
Yeah, that's
So it's so important that you
Seasoning.
use salt.
That is
I'm going to try that
true.
today.
So, you talked about how Sri Lanka, the country loves sweet. Tell us more about Sri Lanka. We have questions.
Yeah, look, I think one of the misconceptions of Sri Lankan food, and I've grown up eating a lot of Sri Lankan food as well, is that, it's just like Indian food. And I know for Sri Lankans would bristle at that, like, no, it's not. Please, just take us through that. Tell us, what are the major differences in some of your favorite dishes?
I mean, first thing, we cook everything with coconut oil, and we use a lot of coconut milk. And rather than using dry spices, we always use fresh, like lemongrass, pandan, fresh curry leaves, fresh green chili, a lot of green chili, and it's spicy. Like sometimes you look at certain curries, they look red, and it's gonna hurt you. But
Let's compare, okay? Because I haven't tried Sri Lankan food just yet. So let's say we have like your Sichuan, like the mala. Have you tried like mala?
yes,
Is it on par with that kind of like the spiciest
it really
mala?
depends. Sometimes
Okay.
it comes to like very Indonesian sort of sambal spice, and it's like they use this chili called kochi, like it's a very tiny chili, almost like ghost chili, and like it's spicy. I can't eat kochi. I can't eat a lot of chili, but it does burn you, and they just love it. And for a continent that never had chili 500 years
Correct.
ago, we're bloody obsessed with it.
Is it?
Yeah, it was brought over from the Portuguese. Brought up to India.
really?
Yeah.
Our spice was black pepper.
Correct. Yeah.
And it still feature prominently black pepper in
Black pepper
Sri
is
Lankan
very
cuisine.
prominent, actually. Yeah, it's one thing, like we use a lot of black pepper, and we'll eat it with fruits. And the pepper from Sri Lanka is like really aromatic. It's really nice to eat.
I was just about to ask because not all pepper is created the same, so you got to have Sri Lankan black
Yes,
pepper.
I love.
I couldn't help but catch you said you eat it with fruits.
Yeah.
What fruit would you eat it with? Any fruit?
In Sri Lanka, how we we always put salt and chili or salt and black pepper.
Guava?
Yeah,
Oh,
Interesting.
because we make fresh achar
Oh.
with everything.
That sounds
I'm
so
trying
good.
guava.
Like-
I just discovered.
Yeah.
Green mango achar. Like even at Kotu, we have a lychee achar. Okay,
Lychee achar.
Yeah,
That I want to
Lycha.
try. Lycha.
Lycha.
pretty much. I'll actually call it now.
Oh, lychee. I'm sorry. Someone on Facebook wants to say hi.
Yes.
Joshua Cullinan, our sake sommelier. He's actually doing Singapore very proud. He's a wonderful sake sommelier. He's won awards and everything. And he says, I would love to pair Japanese sake with your Sri Lankan cuisine one day. If it would be possible, it would be an unforgettable experience.
I think we need to set these two up, get these guys
Yeah.
talking. He
Yeah.
is amazing.
He's
You are
amazing guy.
amazing. It'll be
Yeah.
a wonderful marry of just skills, experience. Oh, it's going to come together harmoniously and granted, we will have to be the taste testers of this.
Or he could do
marriage,
he could
yes.
do arak. Arak is the Sri Lankan alcohol,
Oh,
right?
that's true.
Arak tasting, mix it with sake or something.
It's actually quite fancy these days. It never
Yes.
used to be fancy.
Correct. The cheap stuff, wasn't it, before?
Yeah, it was
yeah.
cheap stuff.
So how do we make arak sound fancy? Arak.
How you say it? Yes. Lovely.
We're going to jump on air in just a bit, so come and join us. The conversation continues. We're going to ask him about all those Michelin stars that he has garnered in just a short
I'm
period
ready
of time.
to jump on air.
Okay. I think Paradise City definitely exists at Kotua, thanks to Chef Rishi. That one by Guns N' Roses here on the Brightside. Good morning to you. We are talking to the man himself, and of course, I think everyone is wondering all about the Michelin stars that he's gotten in such a short span of time.
Chef Rishi, a lot of people are actually wondering why you closed down Cheek Bistro, which had won the Michelin Star.
Main reason. So how I started Cheek by Jal was I took over a restaurant that sort of failed, and we didn't have a budget. We pretty much changed the name where the sign was and a bit of lighting, and then we started. Since then, so after 1 year, we got our first Michelin Star for Cheek by Jal, and we had it for 3 years. And when we wanted to open Cloud Street, one condition Peng, who's my business partner and investor, said is you have to do something with that space, because we had 9 months lease left. We were not sure if we were going to keep it or not.
I see.
We would have run the 9 months and we would have closed.
Oh.
But then it got a Michelin star, so we're like, we can't really close it now.
Amazing.
So we kept it running up until COVID happened. It's one restaurant that was really affected when COVID happened. It was
Sure.
tiny, and we couldn't sit more than like 16 people at certain times, and he was old. He was 8 years old, and also we had this idea. My beverage director back then and the ops manager, we all had this idea to open a wine bar.
Ooh.
And also I have a sentimental value for that place because of the number, and that's where it all started.
Okay.
And I said, let's just change that to a wine bar. And I've never had a feeling of wanting to hold on to things. And I always have this theory in my head, it's always the new shoes. It's good for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then
No matter what it is, I like, and then
Yeah.
you move on. And I've learned like you gain so much more by letting go most of the times.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a great perspective to have, to not hold on to things.
He's very sagely.
Yes, it is.
From discipline comes freedom.
Yeah.
And you must not hold on to things.
yeah.
There'll be one more down the road in this interview. You wait for it. Our
My really
third
close
quote.
friends and staff might have other.
But when you get now, you've got 2 separate Michelin stars, right? So you've got one at Cloud Street, you've got one at Cheek, right? You had one.
Yeah.
So, how, as a chef, is that something you always aspired to? Is that something like, I've got to get Michelin stars, or were you like, okay, that's great, and I now want to move on from that? I mean, take us through the mind of a Michelin star
Funny
chef.
story. Growing up in Sri Lanka, Michelin only was like a Thai company.
Right? Yes, that's right.
Even after I got my first star, one of the uncles asked me, "Son, so what a Thai company has to do with restaurants?" So I had to explain. the
Right.
whole-
That's how most people in Asia would think of Michelin. You're right.
Yeah, and I didn't know about it until I read one book. Obviously, I had heard of it, but there's a book called The Perfectionist, Bernard Luze, and he was obsessed
About it.
obsessed, and he ended up
Killing himself.
killing
right?
himself.
Yes.
And I read it, and I'm like, how fascinating. And I was obsessed with cooking at that time anyway. And I still remember on the flight from Melbourne to Singapore, I'm like, one day maybe I move to Hong Kong so I could possibly get a Michelin star. But then I came here and things changed so much. I started Cheek by Jal, and then they announced Michelin's going to be in Singapore. I'm like, that'll be fascinating. And my sous chef, I hired him after 2 weeks of opening Cheek by Jal. We had an interview, and he's still the head chef at Cloud Street, and he's been amazing to work with the last 8 years. And I said, Mark, if we get a Michelin star for Cheek by Jal at one day, I'll promote myself to be the executive chef and you'll be the head chef.
Yes, you had this joke with him, right?
Yeah. And then it
happened.
But we're very similar. We were so obsessed with, and we used to stay back till like 4 a.m, just thinking and coming up with ideas, and we'll be back at 8 a.m. And it happened within a year. And obviously, like, I think like now we have 2 stars at Cloud Street. It's amazing. But that first one, it's just so hard to bring that feeling back. like, I don't know if I ever would get to 3, but that first feeling, like, you can't compare.
You can't compare that, right?
It's an insane feeling.
But does that put you under immense pressure? And like now, now you want to aspire for a 3rd? Or, I mean,
Look,
do you guys just think, no, I want to do my thing. If it happens, it happens.
when I first decided that I'm going to close Cheek by Chal, it was to get 2 stars.
Okay.
There was no questions in my head. Mark, we want to get 2 stars, and we took a massive risk closing a really well-functioning, financially viable restaurant, spent more money, took a massive risk, and we opened Cloud Street. There was pressure. I think you need stress and pressure to perform.
Yeah.
And it's so hard when you're like too relaxed. So we did put a massive pressure on ourselves. But I thought the day I get 2 stars, I'll sort of lose my mind and like I didn't know what I was thinking. And when it finally happened, I couldn't even drink. I'll never forget that day. It was so weird in a sense. Obviously, I didn't expect it to happen that year, 2 years ago. And I was at the awards and someone told me I just couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, and I didn't drink the whole night. And I woke up next morning and I called my ops manager. I said, can we grab a coffee? We both sat down, we're like, it happened. And we need to make sure we deliver. I don't want customers to come here and think, oh, they just got lucky. Actually, the first thing we did, we went and spent so much money on crystal balls to put caviar in.
Wow.
So in a sense, there was more pressure to perform and deliver.
We need to talk more about that on our Facebook Live. Join us, facebook.com/1FM913. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And so Chef Rishi, you're sharing about, when you got your 2nd Michelin star. You said that you went out of your mind. You didn't need to eat, sleep, and you felt that pressure the next morning when you woke up. Oh, we don't want them to think that it was a lucky thing, you were saying?
Yeah, we just wanted to make sure, and that, I think to be honest, like, I don't know if Cloud Street will ever be the best restaurant in Singapore or not, and that's never been our goal. But one thing for a fact, I know it's one restaurant that has improved so much in the last 4 years, and it's a lot to do with the team, like Mark. And so we have 2 head chefs, and they've been best friends for the last 12 years, and they've worked together. And we've been working together for 8 years, and Shah has been with us for the last 5-6 years as well. So
it's a nice team you've got.
It's a nice team. You can't do it yourself.
Right.
And it's impossible. It's a team sport. And I'm a lot older than how I started my career. And because I remember being at Cheek by Chal, like, I'm in my 20s, like 29. And I'm talking to like 3 years younger people than me. So it felt like, we're friends.
Young, vibrant.
Vibrant. And now I'm talking to a 22-year-old. I feel like a proper uncle. and those 2 boys have brought so much, and their ideas are a lot fresher. And all 3 restaurants have Singaporean head chefs who runs them like machines.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. You know what's interesting is that, your first few restaurants, they were all sort of like Western fusion cuisine. So what finally prompted you to shift to Sri Lankan food for Kotoa?
Someone else asked me to.
Who? Your wife?
No.
Mother?
So I've done a couple of charity events at Cheek by Chal where I cooked Sri Lankan food, and Peng's parents was obsessed with Sri Lankan food. So they kept asking me if I wanted to open a Sri Lankan restaurant. I said no.
But why did you resist it? Like, because that's your background.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, because it's so much. I thought it would be so much easier. And I never wanted to be known as a Sri Lankan chef. I wanted to be known as a chef. Who can cook.
Yep.
And I never wanted to take that way because I thought, that's the easy way to do it.
Okay.
And then the owners of Wanderlust Hotel, he's been supporting us from my first job in Singapore, and he came to me and said, look, I've just got this hotel, and funny enough, Peng used to own it, and then Ashish asked me, would you, that day, 2 days before, he actually texted me and asked me, can we grab a coffee? And I told Manuel, I'm like, oh, Ashish wants to grab a coffee. But that week we had closed Cheek Bistro, and we were about to open Cloud Street, like start constructions. So that week I didn't have a restaurant physically. And I told Manuela, no one wants to have a coffee with me to see how I'm doing. They want to open a restaurant, or there is an event. And I told Manuela, like, if it's a Western restaurant, I'll say no, we don't have the capacity. But if it's a Sri Lankan restaurant, I'll think about it. Funny enough, we met at Common Man on Stanley Street, and Ashish is like, my wife's Parsi, and it's a very small community. And there's a small community in Sri Lanka as well. So her family comes from Sri Lankan Parsi. And so he had Sri Lankan food. And he's like, there's no point us putting another Indian restaurant in Little India. A Western restaurant doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
What do you think? I said, let me go back and speak to Peng.
There's a market need for it, because there isn't really a proper Sri Lankan restaurant until Kotua came along.
It's crazy. Like, it's I used to go to a stall in Tekka Market called
right.
Bloody delicious, like really, really good food. I crave.
But a stall and not a restaurant.
And he's a really brilliant cook, but it's not an experience.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always had this idea in my head, like, why can't Sri Lankan restaurants be cool?
Yeah.
Right.
And to be honest, Hopper's London
is amazing.
Like, you need to give credit to Karan.
Okay.
It took an Indian to put Sri Lankan food in a global scale, and I'll have a laugh about it now, and it's true. And then Tama in Sydney, when she opened Lankan Filling Station, it's a brilliant restaurant. And those two restaurants inspired me a lot. And the other one was Bombay Canteen.
Yes, in Mumbai.
In Mumbai.
Brilliant place.
And really good friends. And they just went out of what the traditional mindset of an Indian restaurant should be.
Right.
They made it cool, proper, real branding.
Yes.
So much passion in everything they do. And Kotua was inspired by those three restaurants, and I'm not even lying. Like, they all should get credit for what Kotua is.
You need to share your star.
He's so humble, this fella.
Yeah.
This guy.
But actually, we do want to find out what are some of the main distinctions between Sri Lankan food and Indian cuisine, actually. I think some of us are still quite curious.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could come on air and talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to jump back on air in just a bit. And I just want to say to all our Brightside buddies tuning in and those on Facebook Live, remember, send us your questions. I'm sure you have burning questions to ask the man in the hot seat here, Chef Rishi. And it might just win you a $100 dining voucher from Shirashi Sushi Show. They do amazing Dawn. So please do jump on that and join us on air right now. I think this is something that Shehzad is saying in his head to you, Chef Rishi. Damn, I wish I was your lover. Sophie B. Hawkins there, because he enjoyed your food so much, he couldn't stop talking about it, especially, back then when I met you at the Michelin Star ceremony for this year. I said, hey, I met this Chef Rishi, talked to him in person. He is such a delight. I need to bring him on the show. You guys okay? And he goes, my wife. The love affair continues.
No, because we were at Cloud Street. He was really friendly and charming, as he is today. And he came over and chatted with me and my wife. And then we had some commonalities, and cricket obviously being a big one of that, and the love of food. It's fantastic.
Shehzad, you're blushing.
You are blushing a little bit.
I do, and truth be told, I also know Ashish and Sharina, who you spoke about as well. So Singapore's a small world, right?
Small
world. So, but look, you were telling us about how you came about with the idea to start Kotua, and we want to kind of know, and I think Carol, who's got a Sri Lankan great-grandmother,
yes,
doesn't really know much about her roots in that sense. So, Rishi, educate everyone here about the very clear distinction between Sri Lankan and Indian food. Because it's not just curry, is it?
No, Sri Lankan Chinese food is bloody tasty.
Ooh, sorry, Chinese? Sri Lankan Chinese food?
I mean, and we have a big Malay community. So
yes.
Sri Lankan Malay food, It's very different.
Oh.
And we have a big Muslim community, and Sri Lanka, how they make biryani, it's so different, and their sambals. And another big community is burgers, so the Dutch community who still lives in Sri Lanka.
So it's very diverse, isn't it?
It's
Sri Lankan?
very diverse,
wonderful.
and it's a lot fresher, cleaner. We eat a lot of vegetables, and vegetables are very lightly cooked.
Okay.
And all the vegetables are treated very differently as well. A lot of seafood. One part of India that comes very, very close to Sri Lankan food is Kerala. It's unbelievably similar.
Okay.
That's the only part. And even when we talk about Indian food, we forget, like, we're talking about a big country that speaks over 300 languages.
Good
so
point.
many. And Indian food, even that, like, I've been going to India recently, and Indian food that you eat in India is so different.
Correct.
And
good point.
it's the same thing. But funny story, when I was opening couture, I could make hoppers. Even before I had the idea to open couture, I've been trying to make hoppers, and my friends always make fun.
What is
it
hoppers?
was so hard. It's a fermented rice pancake.
It's like an appam. You know appams?
Appam, yeah.
And like Cloud Street, I talked to people, and there was this family, was son and mom and dad, was talking to them. They were from Kerala, and they were so nice, and I was talking to her about Sri Lankan and Kerala food. I said, I've been struggling to make hoppers, and I said, I'm opening a Sri Lankan restaurant. I don't know what to do. And she invited me for breakfast one day. And so me and Manuela went to their place for breakfast, and she taught me how to make hoppers.
How
and it's her recipe that is a couture.
Wow.
And I tried so many times, and I mean,
And it hit the mark, right? It was-
yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
That's such a beautiful story. You know, that's the thing. Food, unites, right? Food unites. Food shares with everyone. Culture, tradition as well. So how now, Carol? You know already.
I have to go to Kotua now.
Yes.
And because there's something, I'm looking at the menu, There's something called grilled oyster, betel leaf, coconut, and finger
You're
lime.
looking at Cloud Street menu.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So, that itself, when we so that's the first thing you get served at Cloud Street.
Yeah.
We serve that with betel nut, because in Sri Lanka, when you welcome someone, you actually welcome them with betel leaf.
Yeah.
So we wrap the oyster in betel leaf, and then we serve it with fresh coconut.
Yeah, because I was telling him my
Interesting. I
great grandma
didn't know
used
that.
to chew on betel nut
Yeah.
all the time.
And so
Okay.
it's like a traditional welcome.
I mean, it's also features prominently in Peranakan culture, because I'm Peranakan as well. And, all the women with their stained teeth and all that. We wish that there was teeth whitening services back then in the day. But you know what, Chef Rishi, we're going to carry on and hear from him, because in the hour of 9, we're going to tap on Chef Rishi's experience about his home country. We're going to get him to share about Sri Lanka and why we should all really head over there soon, pay a good visit. So make sure you tune in then as well. Chef Rishi, thank you so much for joining us here on
Thanks so
1FM, sharing everything. I love your stories, and I love your sagely wisdom as well. Thank you, Chef Rishi.
Point 3.